Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Nashville, it's time for Nashville Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Nashville Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, this has been one I look forward to all of our shows, but this is one I'm particularly been looking forward to. Sydney Dozier is with us, and she is the founder and CEO of Renaissance Marketing Group. She's an old friend. Sydney, welcome.
John, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here. I've followed you guys and just what you've done over the last 5 years. Congratulations. And we are old friends, and it's amazing to be here. And I feel very honored. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I'm honored to have you and be able to share your story. You've got a great one. For those that don't know you, kind of give folks an introduction, who you are and how you're serving the market out there through Renaissance Marketing Group.
Sure. So my name is Sydney Dozier. I own a social media marketing agency based out of Nashville, Atlanta, and Charlotte. And it's called Renaissance Marketing Group. And we're in our 7th year here, just serving entrepreneurs and business owners and helping give them their renaissance online. That was always my mission. And that is, we can talk about that later, but that is why I named the company Renaissance. I love a play on words, and I love things that have kind of different meanings to them. And so that is really our mission, is to help business owners that are like, I don't know. I know I need to be on social media. I know I need to have an online presence, but I don't know where to start. Or, there's definitely other facets to kind of how we help people, but that is really kind of at our core, is just kind of putting a strategy together for them and really taking on all of the marketing for them so that they don't have to worry about it. That really is something we're really passionate about. And yeah. Now,
I want to get into your background, because you've got a fascinating journey. I mean, you went to Nashville with the intent to pursue a music career, right?
That's right.
And then ended up in social media. So talk about that journey, how all that happened.
It's a very crazy story. I played music most of my young life, pretty much since I was like 13, 14, played guitar, found out what songwriting was. I was a very creative kid, loved, had a huge imagination, loved just the idea of creating something that didn't exist before, putting words together, putting melodies together. So really thought that music was my career, thought that was my path. Went and kind of did the traditional thing after graduating high school. I played music throughout high school, was in a band, did a lot of shows, was definitely well known in my hometown, which is kind of what I've learned when you move to Nashville. Everyone was the number one in their hometown, and then they move to Nashville and they're nobodies. And it's kind of just funny how, and you're like, you become very humbled really, really quickly when you move to Nashville. So I went to college because everyone went to college, and the girl that I was in the band with, she was like, I'm going to college. Let's come with me. Let's try to do the music thing at college and do that. So I went to college, did 1 year of school. It just wasn't for me. It was not my path. I don't know if it's just the entrepreneur in me or what, but I had a focus problem. I didn't see the point in, learning algebra again. And like, I just got out of college and did algebra. Why do I have to do it again? And that's not my path. I don't want to be a math teacher. It just didn't make sense to me. And so after a year of playing a lot of music and not going to school, not really going to class, doing a lot of partying, I will say, my parents sat me down after that first year, and they were like, so what are you doing? Because this doesn't seem to be working. And that's a very expensive, problem that we're having right now.
Sure.
And I just said to them, I was like, I just want to play music. I just want to write. I want to create. I want to perform. I want to go to Nashville. And so they were like, great, well, go to Nashville. We're not going to support you, but we love you. And, they're not going to support me financially. They've supported me emotionally, and as parents do, amazing parents. And So I saved up that summer, bought a little like 1992 Miata Mazda, this like little go-kart of a car, because I didn't have a car when I was in college. And it was just like, it was like spray painted orange, and it was this hilarious thing anyway. And it was like, I was just 19, and I just had my guitar in the front seat of the, car, and I just drove to Nashville, and I tried and I failed. I mean, as soon as I got to town, I think the first weekend that I got to town, I played at the Bluebird Cafe. I like heard that they were having a open mic night, which if you don't know, the Bluebird is like the best place for songwriters. That's where a lot of people have gotten discovered. And so I played there, and as soon as I watched a couple of people play before me, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? I do not have even, an inch of the talent that these people have. And so it was really hard. I tried to network and kind of make my way, but I don't know why. I feel like I sort of almost had like a divine feeling that came over me in that year period of really trying the music thing, that was sort of like, we love, like, Nashville's where you're supposed to be, but music is not. And so I started sort of going down this journey, this mental journey of like, what talents do I have in the music world that I could put and use in other places? And that was writing. That was, being creative. That was coming up with new concepts. That was, doing social media. I mean, when you're an artist, social media is everything. And it was back then, that was 2011. And so, sort of had to support myself while I was in Nashville. So I did a lot of odd-end jobs. And one of those jobs was becoming a tour guide at the Country Music Hall of Fame, which for me, I mean, it was $8 an hour, but I thought that I had made it in that job because if you're a music lover like me and you work at the Country Music Hall of Fame, that's like the Mecca. That is like the Mecca of music and the Mecca of country music. And so I got a job doing giving tours of this historic studio in Nashville called Studio B, where Elvis Presley got his start, really. Dolly Parton recorded I Will Always Love You. Just the incredible stories that came out of that studio. I mean, I was just so passionate, and you can still tell I have Dolly Parton behind me. I'm such a just music fanatic. And so through doing that job, and this is a long story and I apologize, but I want to get to the social media aspect of it. Through doing that job, my parents were like, you should see if you can maybe climb the ladder at the Hall of Fame. Like, we know you don't have a college degree, but like, you're so passionate. You love that museum so much. I really kind of built a small kind of like following of people that really wanted to be on my tour. They didn't want to be on anyone. They were like, we want to be on Sydney's tour, which was really cool. And I remember too, I would give a tour, and then at the end they'd be like, so are you a singer? And I'd be like, yeah. And then they'd be like, well, we're in town from Oklahoma. We want to see you play. And then they would all show up at my show that night, which was so funny and cool. And anyway, it was a really neat experience, but I kept coming back to, is this sustainable as a career? Probably not. And so I started trying to find out, maybe I could be in marketing. I really love social media. Social media was really starting to become way bigger. That was, like I said, 2011, 2012. So I tried to apply for higher jobs at the Hall of Fame, and everyone kind of told me they don't really hire from within. It's a really corporate structure. It's not easy to climb that ladder there. And so I was leaving work one day, and I walked past a sign that said, opening soon, the Johnny Cash Museum. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. I love Johnny Cash. You can tell it's a way smaller museum. So I walked in there because the door was open, and it looked like there was like a gift store in there that was open. The museum wasn't open. And I ended up meeting this woman who was working the cash register there. Her name was Kelly Hancock, and she actually is Johnny Cash's niece. And we're sitting there chatting. And of course, I'm kind of starstruck, and I'm like, that's amazing. And, when is this museum opening, and what is the plan? And she's like, it's probably going to open in the next 6 months. We just kind of have this store here right now to kind of inform people that it's coming. And I was like, well, are you guys hiring? And she was like, actually, we are. Here's an application. The owners live in California, but they come to town once a month, and it's a family owned company. It's not, the Cashes are not really, involved in owning it, but there are obviously Cash family members that are involved in working there. And so I kind of went home, filled out the application, brought it back the next day, got a call from the museum owner, and pretty much got hired right then and there to work in the gift store, right? But I thought if I could just get my foot in the door, maybe they would see something in me that the Hall of Fame didn't. And that slowly happened. So over the course of a few weeks, I'm sitting there, I'm like folding t-shirts, and customers are coming in, and I'm giving them the spiel about when the museum was opening. And I noticed, and people kept asking, they're like, are you guys on social media? Can we follow the museum and the progress of the museum? And I was like, I get on my phone. There's no Facebook page for the Johnny Cash Museum. There's no Twitter. There's no Instagram. Instagram for Business really was just starting to launch at that time. And I thought, wow, there's an opportunity here for me to do something more than fold t-shirts and use my talents. And so I kind of called up the museum owner, and I was like, is there any way while I'm folding t-shirts, I could maybe like post a picture of some of the memorabilia that's coming through the door? Like, we would just be sitting there, and, Johnny Cash's, 1958 Gibson would just pass on through. And I'm like, that's a social media moment.
Right.
That Johnny Cash fans, that needs to be captured. And so he was like, well, we don't know if we're going to do social media. Like, we just don't really know how to do it. And, we're not experts in it. And I said, I could do it for you. I've been on social media since I was a young person, a young little girl. Could you just give me a chance? Let me do it for a week. And he was like, okay, he's very trusting. And, that kind of goes back to the family owned aspect versus like the Hall of Fame, which was so much more corporate and structured. They would have never let that happen. So they gave me all the passwords, and we were live. And honestly, I mean, it was like, just like that, our following went through the roof. I mean, I think we were gaining 10,000 followers a week on Facebook.
Wow.
And it wasn't just because of me. Johnny Cash is the biggest name in the world, but I knew how to tap into the mindset of a Johnny Cash fan and what they would want to see and what would excite them and what would get the buzz going, to build out that museum. So by the time I ended up leaving that museum, I left in August of 2014. We had, like easily 100,000 followers on Facebook and several thousand on Instagram. And it was just through being really consistent and talking to the fans and getting on the level of a fan. And, all the things that I learned in that time, in that role, I still use in my business today. Capturing, telling the story is really what people want to hear and what people want to see on social media. And so to just kind of end your question, I basically kind of got to a point where I was the marketing director of the museum. They pulled me from the store really quickly, and they were like, you need to just do this. We really think that there's something here. You've created an online buzz for a museum that didn't have one previously. And then it kind of got to the point where they were so trusting in me, and they were like, do you do billboards? Do you know how to grab a billboard location and design it and get a billboard going? And I've just always been the kind of person where I just say yes and figure it out. And that is honestly, I think, kind of a tip for being an entrepreneur. Just say yes and figure it out. And we've done that throughout my entire career at Renaissance. And so I slowly started building my way up in that position. They actually ended up promoting me to being executive director of the museum, which is really, really crazy at 22 years old.
Wow.
And no college degree, just hard work, determination, and just a lot of passion. And I got pretty burned out. I'm not going to lie. That's kind of what led me down kind of the Renaissance path. My family, they were really proud of me, but I think they were a little bit worried about me. They were kind of like, you don't really have a social life. That museum's like you live, breathe, eat, sleep, the Johnny Cash Museum. You're not really dating, and I wasn't very like emotionally, mentally, physically healthy at that time, just because I put so much into that job. And so I kind of ended up leaving on a whim. I turned in my, I just was like, I'm leaving after several years, being there.
Sure.
And ended up moving back to Atlanta, where I started Renaissance 6 months later.
Wow.
That was a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got to catch my breath, and I bet our audience does. I don't want to reset here, folks. So we're here chatting with Sydney Dozier, and she is the founder and CEO of Renaissance Marketing Group. So, Sydney, before we get into Renaissance, one question I have to ask. So you encountered a lot of setbacks along the way, a lot of, different roads than what you planned. And how did you keep you had confidence, clearly, because you showed that, but the other part of success is having the confidence in yourself, right? So how did what was it about you that you had that confidence to say, hey, I can do this. Hey, I can do this, and step up and raise your hand?
Well, there's probably twofold to that question. In the role that I had as the marketing director and executive director at the museum, I got to a point when I was able to just kind of set the music artist dream aside and just really shift into kind of career woman mode. And I just knew that I wanted to be successful, and I wanted to make my family proud, and I wanted to make myself proud. And I didn't want to feel like a failure of moving to Nashville and not doing the music thing. So something kind of clicked in me in those early years in Nashville, where I was like, I'm not going to be a failure. Yeah, I'm not Taylor Swift. Yeah, I'm not, making it in what I originally thought I was going to be doing, but I can still be successful, and I can still, make myself proud. And so I think just putting my head down and really working and just seeing the result of that hard work and that determination, that gave me confidence. I didn't always have confidence as a person. And I do firmly believe that if you want to be successful, you do have to have confidence. When I started Renaissance Marketing Group, I started it, if you heard me say earlier, it was as soon as I moved home, it was a 6-month, almost sabbatical of not working for 6 months, which for me, I'm a workaholic. I've always been a hard worker since I was 14, or since I was 15 or 16, I always worked. Mm-hmm. And, I took that time to really go inward and really focus on myself. I picked up running. I'm a huge runner. I love working out. I love fitness. I love wellness. I love eating really healthy foods, because if you're a high performing person, you really have to, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know at that time that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but it developed over the course of really focusing on myself for the first time in my life, really doing self-care that I didn't do before when I was at the Johnny Cash Museum. So I owe all of my confidence in my business in committing to myself. I think the best thing you can do for yourself as an entrepreneur, and the best thing you can do for your business is give yourself self-care. Because you can't lead a team, you can't lead clients, you can't do the hard days and the long nights if you're not slept well, eating healthy, working out, doing all of those things. So it's a crazy kind of response to the question, but for me, confidence comes from taking care of yourself. And I really focused on that in that 6-month period where thank God I had amazing parents that were like, you can move back in with us, not forever, but move back in with us, figure out what you need to do. And once I gave myself that grace and that time, the idea of Renaissance Marketing Group came to my head. And I was like, this is what I need to do. And haven't looked back since.
Wow. Now, you were 22 when you started the company, right? Yeah. And so you've been around now for what, 8 years? Did I get that right? 7 years?
7. Almost. It'll be 7 years in December.
Okay. Awesome. Now,
I'm pushing 30, John. Thanks for the reminder.
Well, let me tell you something. I don't want to even go there. We're talking about age, so you're let's just move on. But one of the things I'm fascinated by with you is you started your company, but you were in a building mode almost immediately. I mean, because so many social media practitioners are really solopreneurs, a lot of them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you really built a team, and you're in 3 cities. Wow. I mean, how did that happen? Talk about that.
So I was a solopreneur for 3 years before my first hire. But I think, and I'm a Christian, so I don't probably shouldn't use the word manifestation, but I do believe in that. I really, in the early stages of my business, I really had a vision, and the vision always was, I honestly, I visualized seeing people be with me. I've never been the kind of person where I just want to be on my own. I think that's why when I was a musician, I wanted to be in a band. You know, I wanted that team. I didn't want to just do it by myself. So it was really hard for those 3 years when it was just me, because it was like at the end of the day, or if I had a, horrible client experience, or if something didn't go my, the right way, as it really rarely does. It's such a, your days are never linear, but I just was like, dang, wouldn't it be cool if at the end of the day, I had someone to like pour a cocktail with and be like, wow, that client was really on our case today. Let's talk about that. Let's unpack that, and just have that togetherness and have that sense of, camaraderie. And I always visualized that. And so at year 3, I was able to gain a pretty big client for the company at the time. And it got to the point where financially and just workload wise, where I was like, I need to hire. And my personal circle, I had a lot of kind of some pushback from people being like, I don't know if you want to do that, and it's going to just change everything. And it's really hard to manage employees, and like, you're still trying to get things going. But I've always been someone that just listens to my gut, and my gut was just screaming, this is what you need to do, not just for the client to give them the best level of service that they deserve, but for you and for this next chapter and this next step in your business. So I hired Mindy, who's still on my team today. She's now my creative director. Hired her in pretty early 2018, brought her on, didn't have an office at that time. We worked out of my house and had a little home office in my room, and she would come upstairs and we would sit there together. And I just remember that first day that she sat across the desk from me, and I had trained her a little bit on the accounts that I wanted her to manage and what I wanted her to do. And then she's like, okay. And then we got to work, and it got quiet because we were working. And I just like sort of started crying, because I was like, this is a milestone. And I'm a huge believer in, and I think, the path of business, you get so into the day to day that you forget to pat yourself on the back, because you're just going so quickly. But I was like, for me, I was like, did it, like you've got an employee, and she's only working 3 days a week because that's all I could afford. But like, that's cool. And she was so excited, and but it was like such an early like startup kind of culture vibe. And I did the same thing with getting our office. We got our first office space this year, and like, that was another pat on the back moment for me, because I always visualized, wouldn't it be cool if one day I had a couple of people working under me that were on the team, and we had a pink couch in the waiting room area, which we do now. And, it was very startup culture-y, where we have cocktails at 4:00. And of course that's not what business is about. It's not about, just like the ping pong table thing. But I always wanted work to be fun, because I think that life's too short, and I think if you're really creative and you're really passionate and you work really hard, it should be fun, and you should love your team, and you should have a fun culture. And so that's something that we're really, really excited to have. And yeah, so now we're a team of almost 10, and we definitely have interns every single season. So the number of employees kind of shifts, but I love every single person that works with us, and everyone brings something different to the table. Everyone has a different skill set, which was really important for me, to hire people that were smarter than me, better than me, more creative than me, had a completely different psyche than I do, looks at things a completely different way. And, yeah, so it's really been great.
Wow. So let's talk about what you do for clients, and I mean, with a team like that, you've obviously got a lot of capabilities and talents that you can bring to the table for a client and the work that they need. Talk about some of the things that you do, and how you and maybe kind of the journey you go through with a client, how you talk to them about their needs and discern what is best for them.
Right. So one of the questions that we get all the time for new clients is, do you guys offer packages? Do you have like a social media management starter pack, where we could pay X amount? And I think there's a ton of agencies out there who are more trying to have as many clients as possible. So they just have set packages where it's like 2 posts a week, 1 response to a comment a week, one photo shoot, whatever it is. And it's so set for every single client. And I never wanted to be that way. I wanted our kind of what we offer to our clients to be extremely individualized, extremely customized to what their business is, because I never wanted to just serve one industry. I never wanted to just serve, boutique stores. Like I wanted to have a really, large variety of industries and different businesses. And so when we sit down with a new client, there is kind of that discovery call where it's very much, we're in person meeting, it's like, okay, here's your business. What have you done on social media? There's a lot of research that we do on the client before we have that call where we're like, okay, here's what they've done on Facebook. They're not really on Instagram. Here's what they've done on Twitter, an assessment. And then, we look at our services and capabilities. And, I've built the team out to having, we have someone who does all of our paid social media ads. So all she's doing all day, which she's just been such a godsend. And Walker, who's my brother and also our COO, he and I said, at the end of last year, we need someone to take over all of our paid advertising, because it got to the point where Walker and I, who were doing it, we didn't have as much bandwidth as we wanted to just focus on that. And we knew that would set us apart from other agencies, because a lot of other agencies that are more creative based, they don't offer the paid ad component, or that's all they offer. We wanted to have both. So we wanted to have a really strong creative team that creates that incredible content, the visual content, the copy, everything that goes into the creative side. And then we wanted to have someone that knew how to deliver that content to the accurate audiences and to the right demographics, so that our clients could actually benefit from that incredible content. Because, your content is really only as strong as your strategy to execute it to the right audiences. And so, we make sure that whatever client we're, talking to originally, that we're able to offer, the right services. So maybe not every single person needs Facebook ads. Maybe they're more, they're more of a client that wants to grow through influencer marketing. We have a new skincare client that we brought on a few months ago, and they're like, we know that the beauty industry is so heavily influencer marketing. And of course we know that. We have an influencer relations manager where most of her job is just building relationships with influencers, building relationships with bloggers, and learning what those bloggers and influencers are looking for, and seeing if we have a client on our roster that we can connect them to and create and form, an online collaboration with them. So, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of research that goes into it on our side. But I really try to have tried to build such an equipped team so that there's nothing that really we can't offer the client when it comes to paid advertising. So we do, obviously Facebook ads, Instagram ads, that's a huge, huge, huge part of what we do. Google ads, that's another really big part of what we do. Not every customer or client of ours needs Google ads, but we like to kind of have that in our back pocket, for some of our clients. So we do. One thing that I think makes us really unique is we have full in-house photography and videography. So a lot of agencies will outsource video work, and it costs the client thousands of dollars more than what they're already paying the agency, on a retainer. And we offer that in-house. So if it's a client that we know is going to need video work on an ongoing basis, we add that into the retainer, and it's not as expensive as you would think that it is, because we see value in ongoing video work so much. I think that video is really the way to move the needle for social media and for businesses right now. And so Walker is our video guy, and he's churning out videos like every single day. And sometimes they're more, low key iPhone types of videos, and sometimes they're highly produced editorial videos. But there's a need for both, depending on what the client is. And we build websites as well. So we build websites. We do, copywriting for websites. We do all the creative work. And then of course the bread and butter of the foundation of Renaissance is completely taking over the management of the social media for a business. That's what I'm the most passionate about. Everything else we do because it's necessary. But my passion has always been in creating content that is going out, writing captions, we're doing the community management, responding to Facebook messages, responding to direct messages, things like that. I would say that's definitely the foundation of what we do.
So let's get into, I would love it if you could share maybe a success story, a client that's benefited because of your intervention. You don't have to use names unless it's you're able to do that, but share something with us if you could.
Yeah. So to keep it a little bit more timely, when COVID hit, we had to really figure out how to pivot with some of our clients that we knew were going to be extremely affected because we serve small businesses, right? Like that is who we serve. Mm-hmm. And we have a client who's one of our just favorite clients we've had for several years here in Nashville. It's a gift store. And there's 2 locations in Nashville that they have. And, just like most retail and restaurants and everything, just doors just had to shut. And the business owner, Charlie's such an amazing guy. He's been in business for like 25 years. They win Nashville's best gift store like every year. They're amazing. And they've built such an incredible customer base just locally. They hired us to really increase their social media following. And they hired us to redo their website a couple of years ago because their website was very old school. It needed to have a renaissance. But, when we first partnered with them, we kind of said, hey, you should probably, this was pre-pandemic. We said, you should probably consider selling online. Like we really see that kind of being the wave and, with Amazon and everything, like you really should probably sell online. And he was kind of like, I just feel like that's a lot. I don't really want to do it. And so we were like, okay, well, we'll just kind of keep driving store traffic. We'll do Google ads to really start, putting you guys on the map and reaching even more people that don't know about you. We planned a lot of events with them and, they were doing really, really well. But then COVID hit and nobody was able to shop there. So we called them and we didn't want to lose them as a client, right? Because we're a small business. We were like, what can we do to show and provide so much value to our clients right now so that we don't start losing clients. And I'm so grateful to God that we didn't lose one client during the pandemic. And it's because we just worked so hard on that. We definitely had clients that freaked out and lowered, and we of course lowered the price of what we were charging them because of course we did. But we didn't lose anyone. And I really do think that's because we all got really, really creative. We worked so much harder to just figure out how can we use the internet to still reach their customers. So with this particular business, we said, you know what, we're not going to charge you for it, but we are going to go into your website and we're going to list items that you sell in your inventory that we know people need right now. They had a ton of puzzles in their business that didn't really sell that well pre-pandemic, but there was a puzzle influx for people. Puzzles became like Instagram. Like everyone just wanted puzzles and wanted to make puzzles in like March, April 2020. And I was like, Charlie, you guys have so many, like, let's get puzzles on your website and see what happens. So we put all the puzzles on the website. We started posting on social media and I'm not kidding you, I don't know the exact numbers, but they were selling hundreds of puzzles a week.
Wow.
And online. We had to figure out how to do it. And he had to figure out with his team how to do the UPS and the shipping and all of that. But we created an e-commerce store throughout their website and just started pushing it. And we said, okay, I know that money's really tight, but if we could just get a small ad budget from you for Facebook ads and social media ads, we think we can reach the masses because there was such a demand for puzzles that a lot of the places that sold puzzles were sold out. And we still had such a huge inventory, which was like, thank God we did. So we sold a ton of puzzles and then we started getting into selling masks. And so it was really like kind of funny. We listed a lot of items on their store that sold okay. But once we got masks on there, it was like puzzles and masks. It was just all day. Just my email would just go off. It'd be mask order, mask order, mask order, puzzle order, puzzle order. And we were so happy because it was just working. And, it gave them enough time to kind of figure out what was the next thing to do. And the tornado hit in Nashville right at the same time, basically, that pandemic hit. And so we started doing online fundraisers to, help support the victims of the Nashville tornado. And we made shirts that said Nashville Strong. Our team designed them, and Charlie ordered them, and we sold a ton of those. And so we just had to get really creative, and we had to pivot, and we had to help a client that didn't always see the value in e-commerce. And now he sees the value of it even more, because as we know, Amazon is really, big box is really kind of killing the small business world. And so it's all about being clever and figuring out what is there a need for, and how do we articulate kind of the messaging to let the people of Nashville and their customers know, hey, before you go buy puzzles or whatever on Amazon, support your local small business, because that is what we need. And people really did. We tugged at heartstrings, and it worked.
Well, here's what I hear in what you said, though, and this is so crucial for business owners, is when trouble hit, instead of thinking about your thing, your tactics, your yourself, really, how are we going to keep doing Facebook, or how are we going to keep doing whatever? How are we going to keep building websites? You thought about your clients' needs, and what are their needs, and how can we add value to that, whatever that is. And you used that to really power yourself through, right?
That's so true. And that's a great point. I love that you pointed that out, because I didn't even really think about that. I always, and this isn't always a good thing, but I always put my business last. I always put my customers first. Some of the clients we have on our roster who, the Drake House.
Oh yeah.
Who else? We have a client called Three Little Dogs Flooring and Interior out of Cumming, Georgia. Those clients I've had since I started the company in 2014, but I acquired them very early 2015. And it's always for me been about the clients, and it's always for me been about empowering my team to feel the exact same way. Like, I really, one of the quickest things that I try to nip in the bud if I start to see happening anywhere in my business is, well, that's not in our contract, or that's not, I don't want to do, the client's asking this, but we're not paid to do that. I am so, and of course, within reason. And my brother gets mad at me sometimes. He's like, why are we planning this entire event for this client when we're not an event planning company? And I'm like, well, because I'm so in that same mindset that I was in during the COVID pandemic of just, how can we support them in new and creative ways? How can we support them? And because the thing is, even though we're social media experts, social media consultants, whatever you want to call it, at our core, really, and what my core is just being a business obsessed person. I give so much business advice, which is, funny. I'm in my 20s. I've not been in business very long, but I'm so passionate about business and finding new ways that bring in customers. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a consumer, right? Like, that's who I am. And I'm constantly, when I'm scrolling Instagram and at night and I'm seeing what other businesses are doing, I'm learning, and I'm learning this is what's working for this. Okay, well, we could do this with this client, and just trying to have that outside the box way of thinking and always put them first over what we're doing, because at the end of the day, we couldn't be here if it wasn't for the clients.
Great words here from Sydney Dozier. Sydney is the founder and CEO of Renaissance Marketing Group. Sydney, this is, wow, this has been awesome. I would love it as we wrap up here. Talk about the kind of clients that are good fits for you right now.
So really, there's not a type of client that we really kind of haven't worked with. We work from, like I said earlier, skincare brands to car dealerships, to retail stores, to restaurants, to bakeries, to a ton. We have a ton of nonprofit clients, like 4 nonprofit client organizations. We love our nonprofit clients because they need a strong social media strategy more than anyone for fundraising and finding new creative ways to raise money, especially in the pandemic where, large events and functions and things like that were not happening. So we did a lot of things like, fashion shows online for some of, like for the Drake House, we did a huge online fashion show for them. And I would say clients that maybe I'm selfishly more drawn to than others would be restaurants and hospitality. Huge foodie, love food. We have a client that's a wine bar here in Nashville, and not that I'm playing favorites, but they a huge wino, and I'm really, really proud and really excited to have such a unique, amazing, locally owned wine bar client here. So I would say if there's anyone listening that maybe is in the hospitality, tourism, or just kind of food space, that is where I'm hoping to kind of move more into, but never alienating anyone else, because we really just kind of work with a multitude of different industries.
Sure. Yeah. And you definitely prove your chops on tourism. We heard that at the beginning. So folks, if you missed that, go back to the beginning of this interview. You'll hear what I'm talking about. Sydney Dozier. Wow. This has been great. So let's get to the most important question, which is for those that have heard something that makes them want to get in touch with you. Tell them what your coordinates are.
Sure. So you can find us at www.renaissancemarketinggroup.com. It's a very long URL. Renaissance is not an easy word to spell. So RENAISSANCE. And you can follow us on Instagram at Social Renaissance, or find us on Facebook, Renaissance Marketing Group, or you can email me, Sydney at renaissancemarketinggroup.com. And my name is spelled SYDNEY, but I'm sure that will be in the show notes.
Yes, it will. We'll have all that in the show notes, folks. So you don't have to worry about getting any of that. You just click right through, right? So, Sydney Dozier, it's been a pleasure. So glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Folks, just a request. So we would love it if you would go on your favorite podcast app and subscribe to the show. Nashville Business Radio is a search term. We would ask boldly for a 5-star review. And it's not about me. It's not about Business RadioX. We got plenty of listeners, folks. It's about our guest. We want our guest to be found. And you've heard the good work that Sydney has been doing in her company. And we would love it if you would help her and all our other guests by giving us a great review so that her show and others can be found. And that helps them. And that's what we're all about here at Business Radio X. So we would love it if you could do that. That's about it. I mean, I'm still speechless, Sydney. We're going to have you back sometime soon.
Thank
But
you.
yeah,
Thank you so much. I would love to anytime, and I look forward to seeing you in Nashville soon. Hopefully,
I look forward to that. Folks, for my guest, Sydney Dozier, Renaissance Marketing Group, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on Nashville Business Radio.